What's happening to the almighty U.S. dollar? For decades, it was the reserve currency of the international oil trade.
What if a single move by Iran could tip the scales of global power and shake the foundation of U.S. influence? Iran, as a member of the BRICS, is increasing its presence and influence in the international oil market and posing a threat to the U.S. monopoly. Iran resumed high oil production levels, the highest in 3 years. Plus, it sells oil to countries that do not support U.S. sanctions. On its way to making its economy firmer, Iran has developed new partners in trade and exports, talking about which two countries from non-BRIC associations have recently agreed to resume the purchase of Iranian oil.
The West likes to dismiss the BRICS alliance as a political sideshow. But is it starting to crack the U.S.-led global order?
A twist comes from Bangladesh and Oman, which recently signed oil deals with Iran, indicating that future transactions may not necessarily involve U.S. dollars due to the sanctions. This development also raised some questions about the potential consequences for the U.S. industries. If BRICS countries expand the use of their currencies for trading, Iran produced 3.22 million barrels of crude oil daily in July 2024, the country's highest output year. To meet the current demand, Iran plans to increase its production rate to 4 million barrels per day, thus showing an approximately 19% increase. Such an effort has made the Iranian oil earnings reach $28.4 billion a year, far from the $9 billion it used to earn in 2020.
So as a bank, when you transfer money for your customer, you open the SWIFT system. There you send a message to the recipient's bank.
Iran's petroleum minister Javad Oji assured the nation that Iran is selling its oil to over 17 countries, which shows that Iran has maneuvered around the restrictions imposed by the United States. Iran's recent membership in the BRICS alliance has further enhanced its position, providing new opportunities to attract additional oil buyers and strengthen its global presence. With BRICS inching closer to ditching the U.S. dollar, we're now looking at a ripple effect that could impact America in ways we didn't expect. Could this be the game changer no one saw coming?
Which is run by the United States, period. China might be leading the way in the de-dollarization efforts, but more and more countries are jumping on that bandwagon, like Russia, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia.
The BRICS group of countries is ready to launch a new currency supported by gold to compete with the U.S. dollar. An official statement about the creation of this new currency could be declared during the BRICS summit scheduled for October this year. As stated above, the main goal of the BRICS is to create a diverse economy where emerging markets can decrease their linkages with the dollar. They operate amidst these changes of making global trade mainly in the BRICS gold-backed currency or other local currencies acceptable by the participating developing countries. This shift would enable these nations to safeguard their economies from the latent risks of having large stockpiles of U.S. dollars.
The details like how much money needs to be transferred, the bank details of the recipients, and so on. So you have those details. Now it is your job to make sure that the money ends up in the right place. How do you do that? You see, for international transfers, banks have a special messaging system.
Global debt has reached a staggering $188 trillion, and U.S. debt in particular has topped $34.4 trillion this month. It is, therefore, no surprise that many developing nations are looking to disconnect from the greenback and its inherent unpredictability. Based on the above revelation, U.S. banking and finance will be most affected if BRICS advances its de-dollarization campaign. Banks across America would be obliged to take stringent steps to look into the future security of the U.S. dollar. Moreover, new currencies replacing the dollar with a basket of gold and BRICS currencies could emerge as the main instruments of this market. Consequently, the capacity of American banks to lend abroad could be considerably decreased, hence the extent of money paid out overseas. This would distort the U.S. dollar demand and supply situation, and banks are likely to feel the first blow from the measures initiated by BRICS. They are already felt in the U.S. banking industry at the moment. Many banks have closed down, while many others have gone bankrupt since 2020. The impact does not end there. It will spread like a wave if the banking industry receives the initial blow. This sector extends to such industries as consumer products, retail, IT, IT and fintech, which may not remain unaffected.
Убежден, что действуя вместе, сплоченно, мы сможем добиться максимальной реализации экономического, инвестиционного, технологического и человеческого потенциалов наших стран. Укрепить конструктивное влияние БРИКС на мировые процессы.
Inflation is also anticipated to escalate in the United States, increasing the price of consumer goods and services. As far as BRICS goes, every effect of dollar devaluation on America's economy is profound, and one day, our households will soon feel the impact of this move in our daily lives.
Currencies, including the rupee, rose in the previous quarter.
In turn, BRICS' plan to create an alternative currency backed by gold is part of a larger plan for monetary liberation from the hazards of the US dollar dominance. These aggressive strategies of the BRICS coalition, coupled with the increase in the US debt, may signify a turning point in the global system of monetary relations.
And I have a question. For all of our lives, the dollar has been the king of currencies around the world. But is that about to change? Let's get to the bottom line.
The phrase, "the sun never sets on the British Empire," was flaunted during the latter half of the 19th century, up to the early 20th century, due to the vast territorial jurisdiction that the United Kingdom commanded over the globe. For over 300 years, Britain has governed faraway territories, possessing great power and declaring its power worldwide. At that time, the idea that this superpower would cease before the 1950s could be mentioned was thought of as absurd. The empire was too big, strong, and well entrenched to fall. At least, this was the world's mindset then. Fast forward to today, we see an equivalent cycle performance with the US greenback.
Related trade. Instead, they seek to settle their trade in their own currencies. India, for example, has set up a rupee trade mechanism for trade settlements.
The US dollar today is similar to how the British Empire was years ago. People in all parts of the world use the US dollar to conduct international business and dominate foreign commerce. Yet now BRICS aims to become an equalizer, an underdog that wants to free the world from the grasp of the United States and the dominance of the US dollar. The BRICS alliance is determined to liberate countries from the American stranglehold on the international monetary system, much in the same vein as the desire of nations for their freedom from the British Empire.
The dollar has been progressively losing its dominance since 2000, when its share was above 70%. The US currency's share is down to 59.2%.
It might have once been considered unimaginable that Britain could lose its empire. Yet history tells us that even the mightiest can come unstuck. Now the US dollar is experiencing a similar problem because BRICS is ready to start a new phase of trade and financial relations, free from the dollar. As if the British Empire realized that the sun would soon set for them, BRICS is now doing everything possible to diminish the role of the US dollar on the international money market. Something could signal the power shift as far as the global economy is concerned.
Also fell slightly while the Japanese yen rose. The shares of the Chinese yuan, the British pound,
the BRICS countries, the original BRICS plus the new members of BRICS, are far away from having anything that can rival the dollar's dominance.
Although these attempts appear rather desperate now, they may yield high returns. This plan means that BRICS's de-dollarization is not a short-term plan, but a long-term structural change to diversify away from the US dollar. This might have a massive impact on the economy of the United States of America if BRICS fully empowered the plan to shift trade away from the dollar. The group is progressing quickly on several fronts, such as concluding international trade in local currencies, changing trade relations to incorporate these currencies, and developing a payment system that does not use greenbacks. They are also proposing the creation of a BRICS currency specifically for cross-border transactions, exploring the use of cryptocurrencies for global trade, and working on plans for a central bank digital currency, CBDC. Additionally, BRICS is actively persuading other nations to abandon the dollar, establishing local currencies as the sole means for oil and gas payments, and expanding their alliance to include more member countries to strengthen their financial power. In a further step, BRICS is considering issuing bonds tailored to their alliance, bypassing the US dollar altogether.
Can the BRICS countries challenge the dominance of the US dollar? Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin and his BRICS partners want to do just that. But is their goal realistic?
So, if any of these initiatives are successful in the next few decades, the dollar could experience what happened to the British Empire. Remember the familiar refrain, the American dollar will remain the world's currency, bar none. But just like the British Empire was once considered unstoppable, the dollar's future may be close. We are strongly encouraged to revisit this topic in 2054 to assess changes. Iran's oil is on the move, finding surprising new destinations as Tehran ramps up its export efforts.
Used to be a club of just 5 global heavyweights, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa now includes a total of 10 members, with 34 others waiting in the queue.
As global powers watch closely, Iran's strategic shift could reshape international trade routes and challenge sanctions in ways no one expected. Where is Iran sending its oil? And what does this mean for global markets? According to sources and shipping data, Iran has quietly expanded its oil exports, sending smaller crude shipments to new destinations such as Bangladesh and Oman. This move is part of Tehran's effort to keep its oil production near peak levels, not seen in the past 5 years. Oil remains Iran's primary source of revenue, and with sanctions from the U.S. reinstated in 2018 targeting Iranian crude exports, Iran has sought creative ways to maintain its oil trade despite these restrictions. Notably, as a member of OPEC exempt from production quotas, Iran is pushing hard to optimize its production and export volumes. According to the semi-official Mehr news agency, Oil Minister Javad Uji announced in July that Iran had been selling oil to 17 countries, including several in Europe, though specific details of these transactions could not be independently confirmed. One intriguing shipment involved the tanker Golden Eagle, which sailed near Bangladesh's Chittagong port earlier this year. The tanker had received Iranian oil from a ship loaded at Karg Island, according to the U.S. advocacy group United Against Nuclear Iran.
The upside risks tied to what's happening with Middle East tensions, but this oversupply complex, I think it's here to stay.
In April, Golden Eagle offloaded portions of this cargo through ship-to-ship transfers to smaller tankers in the Chittagong area. A secondary tracking source verified the shipment to Bangladesh. However, an official with the state-owned Bangladesh Petroleum Corporation, which oversees the nation's main refinery, stated that they did not purchase the cargo and noted the difficulty in identifying the buyer. Iran has been ramping up its oil export game, venturing into new markets such as Bangladesh, Syria, Oman, and China as it navigates U.S. sanctions on its crude oil exports. According to shipping sources and industry data, these efforts have led Tehran's oil production to reach 3.2 million barrels per day this year, the highest since 2018. This increase highlights Iran's determination to keep its oil industry robust, despite the constraints posed by sanctions reimposed in 2018 under former President Donald Trump's administration. One noteworthy export in this push involved the tanker Golden Eagle, registered in Liberia, which transported Iranian oil to Bangladesh. After loading oil at Iran's Karg Island and receiving a ship-to-ship transfer from another vessel, Golden Eagle was offloading parts of its cargo in April near Chittagong through similar transfers with smaller tankers. Despite reaching out, the Liberia-based owner and manager of Golden Eagle could not comment on the transaction, nor did Iranian officials respond to statement requests. Other high-performing markets have also buoyed Iran's production and exports. Petro Logistics, a Geneva-based firm monitoring tanker flows, noted that Iranian crude exports hit significant highs from March to May, marking the most active 3-month period since mid-2018. However, Virginie Bonnick of Petro Logistics pointed out that these volumes are leveling off.
That's right. And if we look previously when they have defended market share, which is to your second strategy, it has really been done so that they target U.S. shale oil production.
Additional shipments were confirmed heading to Syria, where Iran has historically maintained strong trade, yet shipments average about 57,000 barrels daily, lower than peak rates in previous years, as Iran increasingly diversifies its customer base. Claire Jungmann from the U.S. advocacy group United Against Nuclear Iran, UANI, mentioned that another shipment believed to be Iranian crude arrived at Oman's Sohar port in June, having similarly been transferred from another vessel loaded at Karg Island. Both Sohar Port and Oman's Maritime Security Center did not respond to inquiries about this transaction. Meanwhile, China remains a substantial buyer of Iranian oil, bypassing sanctions by importing crude oil rebranded as originating from other countries such as Malaysia, Oman, or the UAE. China's daily import has seen a steady flow of Iranian crude, aiding China's overall import levels to remain high. Homayun Falak-Shahi, a senior crude oil analyst with Capiler, reported that Iranian exports have reached an average of 1.5 million barrels per day since February and are maintaining a steady rhythm, ensuring Iran's sustained revenue stream amid a challenging geopolitical landscape.
About $10 a barrel just because of these oversupply fears, and we think they're quite warranted.
Who thought the unimaginable would happen this early? Yes, the US dollar's share in world reserves has plummeted below 60%, a seismic shift many experts predicted would take years, if not decades. This historic decline raises questions about the dollar's future dominance and the global financial system's stability. As countries seek to diversify away from the dollar, what underlying factors fueling this change, and how might it reshape the economic landscape? Let's find out.
As we head into 2024, the dynamics of geopolitics is at the core of global markets.
Central banks across most developing nations are actively reshaping their reserve allocations by increasingly investing in gold and various local currencies. This shift comes as scrutiny grows around the US dollar, with the staggering $35 trillion US debt looming large over global markets. Many economists warn that the impact on dependent economies worldwide could be profound if these markets experience a downturn or enter a recession. Leading this de-dollarization movement, BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are taking bold steps to reduce reliance on the US dollar and promote the use of their currencies in both domestic and international transactions.
The dollar has been progressively losing its dominance since 2000, when its share was above 70%. The US currency's share is down to 59.2%.
The dollar's dominance as a global reserve currency is on a steady decline, with its share in world reserves dropping to 59% in 2024, a significant decrease from 72% in 2002, as reported by the Atlantic Council. Over the last 22 years, the US dollar's share in the reserves market has fallen by 13%, as developing nations increasingly distance themselves from dollar dependency in favor of diversifying with other assets. During the same period, China's yuan has grown in global reserves by 3%, underscoring the emerging role of BRICS economies in challenging dollar supremacy.
Also fell slightly while the Japanese yen rose. The shares of the Chinese yuan, the British pound,
once a robust competitor to the US dollar, the euro has also seen a significant reduction. It was reduced to 19% in 2024 from 28% in 2008, reducing the share of its reserves by 19%.
Of dollars in international commerce, particularly for commodities and energy, has helped the greenback over the years.
Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova also pointed to a decline in the value of Western currencies. The yuan has increased to 3% from 1% in 2016, and China continues to push for the internationalization of its currency. In addition to diversifying their reserves, the BRICS members are already promoting the settlement of bilateral transactions, goods imports, and exports in local currencies. This shift is changing the traditional function of the US dollar in international business. Experts are already edgy that should the move toward de-dollarization continue, the extent of the dollar's share in global reserves may sink to below 50% in the foreseeable future.
Countries to cut them off from the global payment systems and dollars. This has many countries looking at alternatives to the dollar. The latest International Monetary Fund's data shows a decline in the dollar's share in global central banks' foreign currency reserves.
If you liked the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.